For the completion of this assignment, you are required to finish 2 readings. Notice at the bottom of this slide, I've placed the themes according to the AP framework. These are some of the terms that you need to know by the end of this particular day. You could also see the term sheet. This image shows some of the photographs that are included in the AP framework. This image here is kind of self-explanatory. It's about students protesting in 1968. I'm not really going to comment any more on this. Also, keep in mind that there is a reference to Puerto Rican studies. Here you see a description for Puerto Rican studies, which is also included in the framework. This is a section from the reading Before the Mayflower, and I'm going to try to direct you to this understanding of a dark continent prior to studies looking at ancient African empires. There was this belief among Europeans that Africa was a dark continent, a continent without a history, a continent probably without any contribution in their view according to civilization. So this is definitely something that is biased, but is going to be a key focal point as we progress through Unit 1, which is on ancient African empires. Another image that is in the framework is this image. Again, it's about Black studies in an annual conference. For reading 1 and reading 2, you have to have an understanding of both. This reading is about the process of writing history and how history is created, utilizing different thesis points, evidence that is used. And reading 2 is pretty much an example of writing 1, where it's looking at African American contribution in American history. Now, if you go back to some of the images that were presented, for example, the students protesting, the first image, the issue there is that there is this belief that American history has been taught from generally one point of view. So those students are protesting to try to include more perspectives of American history. For reading 1, I'm pretty much looking at the process of history. Pay attention to the roommate scenario and how the people in question in this reading go about trying to support their thesis, trying to find certain evidence, and actually what counts as specific evidence. For reading 1, what's the main point? You need to have that understanding, your overall thoughts, and is history comparable to science? Science is more black and white, whereas history is more of a bias and it's open to interpretation, and that interpretation can change as society changes. This course is going to introduce you to primary source documents, what counts as a historical source. Here you see this woman holding documentation, and what I would like you to do is try to generate a thesis looking at this particular source. And you do not want to look up anything else, because a primary source is a document from the past, and you want to use this source alone and just analyze it, try to come up with some conclusions about this particular document, because this lesson is all about understanding the process of writing history as well as what counts as evidence. Continuing with that particular theme, we're going to look at bias and facts. Malcolm X was assassinated. Is this factual, or is this bias and possibly open to interpretation? What about Al-Qaeda knocking down the Twin Towers? Malcolm X was assassinated by COINTELPRO. Is this fact, or is this a biased interpretation of this particular event? These are some of the issues you want to focus on as you're completing the reading, and then we transition into reading 2. Reading 2 is a little more complex. Here they give you a breakdown of obscure people in American history, and they continue on with that particular theme as they mention specific people throughout. Here they talk about Harlem, some more people famous in African American history, but possibly unknown in American history. These are the points you need to have an understanding of for reading 2. And what I'm trying to get you to look at here is that there are different interpretations for any one event. For example, we can look at World War II or World War I, and the American experience is definitely different and is going to lead to a different interpretation of that same body of information. Over here, I'm going to put World War I, and that is going to be different from the German point of view, which will be different from the Austrian point of view. Different interpretations for history exist, and you want to continue with that particular theme as you focus on these particular readings. Now you want to go back to this idea of the dark continent, and this is pretty much the reason why this is the starting point of the course, because we're going to be looking at documents as well as different interpretations for African American history. And here we see the themes or the definitions, the terms that are needed to understand the AP course, and the closure slide.